good. Hello, this is the Remembering Podcast. This is a podcast designed to help you remember who you are. I am one of your three hosts, OnenO.
I'm KK.
I'm Taylor.
And today we'd like to break down the subject of prayer. We feel that this is going to be a really fun deep dive to try to understand and expand the subject that we were talking about last time, which is I don't know what to call God anymore. This time we thought it'd be fun to talk about how to actually talk to God and what that looks like to all three of us. So,
and if it's important or necessary.
Is it even important?
Or
why
why?
bother?
does it matter?
Well, because in our meditation episode, we talked about how meditation's kind of like the counterpart to prayer, where
Yes.
prayer is talking to God and meditation is the listening and the receiving. And so it only makes sense to
That
talk
it's
about
important.
the talking part,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. Yeah.
I think
definitely.
otherwise it's a one-way conversation. I think prayer, though, sometimes some people just talk to God and then they
Right.
don't listen.
Yes.
And so, but then I also know people like growing up in the church and even today, people are like, I'm kind of scared to talk to God. I don't know what to say because I've done all these things in my life and I just don't know how to approach that. Like, what does that look like? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, you're scared to talk to
Like
God.
there's underlying shame.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like unworthiness.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, and also when I was growing up, it was like write out your prayer list, which weirdly starts to look like a Christmas list of like, I want a car and I want a pony and
Yeah.
I want roller skates. And so it's also like, are we just asking God for things?
Yeah.
Like, what is prayer? Is it just like, hey, will you help me get out of this mess? Or
Yeah.
is there more?
And like, you don't have to
Yeah.
just talk to God when things are like, the shit's hit the fan, you know? And I feel like
Absolutely.
that's, those are very important moments when you fall to your knees and you're like, I don't know what to do anymore, how to fix something. But that's the communication. But prayer is so much deeper and more
Yeah.
important and can expand your life in so many ways other than just
Absolutely.
like, I've hit a wall and God, I need you.
Yeah. And I feel like it's a relationship aspect with our relationship with Spirit. I will bring this up maybe more in detail later, but I told you guys I wrote a book on prayer that I have yet to release, but I'm going to be releasing soon. But this point comes up in this book of if our relationship with God is going to be defined as a relationship, then that implies communication and ongoing communication.
And what do they say in like marriage counseling, like, or couples counseling? It's always like, are they communicating? Like, communication is the number one reason relationships fall apart. It's because somebody's not
Right.
communicating or being vulnerable or being open.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the way I put it in the ebook was that through the metaphor of when a guy is letting a girl know that he's interested in her, it's an ongoing dialogue, you know? It's like a constant reaching out. And then the girl knows this guy's kind of interested in me.
If someone stops communicating, they're like, well, I'm ghosted.
That
I guess
is-
I'm not a priority.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like, when you don't get the response back and, people are like, they're not responding. Like, why aren't they responding? It's like, no response is actually a response.
It is, yeah.
And I mean, think about the way, like bringing that full circle to like God, it's like, how weird would it be to like talk to God because you're in like a really bad situation and then dead silent because you think your ego thinks it's got a handle on life again.
Oh,
Well,
totally.
and if you've had friends that only reach out when they need something, it sucks.
Yeah.
You're like,
are not
I'm not
good
talking to
friendships."
you.
No, that's not really a two-way relationship.
Yeah.
So, as you guys have morphed in your relationships with God from perhaps the way it was in the church you grew up in, what does your prayer life look like?
Oh, yeah.
Bible study question, but I'm actually curious what your prayer
Yeah.
life looks like.
Well, mine's always kind of been this constant dialogue. There is definite times that I would say I pray, but as we were already just kind of exploring, for me, it's been this idea of relationship. And that surprisingly hasn't changed. As my exploration with understanding how to talk about God and like what names or labels we might use for God, my dialogue with God hasn't really changed. It's kind of just an ongoing conversation. And so to me, my prayer life is pretty much just ongoing dialogue, and then a kind of relying on that dialogue too, of knowing that God wants to hear from me, God wants to help me. God is genuinely wanting to see me succeed and see me grow into the best version of myself. And so with that kind of constant dialogue, there are moments where I come to him and I say things pretty firmly sometimes. And we were talking about the idea of authoritative prayer, which we'll get more into. But sometimes it's it can be very intentional and very fierce in a way. And then other times it's just pure gratitude and pure involving spirit in my moment. You know, if I'm just looking at a beautiful sunset or something's going on in my life, it's just a quick like, thank you, you know, thank you for that. And it's, I guess in that sense, it's an acknowledgement that spirit is here always, kind of being aware of that.
Yeah.
What about you, KK?
Oh, me. Well, so one of
Taylor
my,
asked the question.
Yeah,
so.
that's true. So I'm going to answer your question.
I would love that.
I remember, so Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer,
Oh, yeah.
was one of my, he was a catalyst for me into kind of reframing or restructuring my spiritual walk and what, what God is and Jesus and everything. And so he actually taught that prayer cultivates peace within us. And then peace isn't something that you just get when you quieten your mind. Peace is actually a new state of beingness. And I remember I had to pull it up because I don't want to misquote, but he said St. Francis has a famous prayer and it states that to God, make me an instrument of your peace. And so what that is like when you meet someone and you're an instrument of peace, God make me that, you embody what peaceful nature is. Like when you go to a river or you go to a calm, soft lake, you can feel and see the difference. And I think each one of us carries that type of, it's called chitta. It's Sanskrit word for like a whirlpool within our chest. And we can calm that down or it can be raging inside of us. And prayer for me is to calm that whirlpool inside of my chest. It's actually like asking God. I think being in a constant state of prayer is, as Paul put it, pray without ceasing, which means you never end your prayer. Like your life is a prayer. And Wayne Dyer also, which is a practice I've put into place for years now, is the moment you open your eyes, before you put your feet over the bed, say thank you 3 times. And so I'll just like open my eyes, and before I put my feet over, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you. And just thank you for, I get another day. I get a whole nother day to be here and to have my best friend, God, my divine maker walk through me all day long. Yeah.
That's great.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
What about you, Taylor?
Well, as you guys were talking, I was like, I don't even know what to talk about. I don't know. Prayer has just been such a part of just faith conversation my whole life. It just seems so epic. It's like, where do you even start?
Yeah.
But then as you guys were talking, I was like, oh, I haven't thought about this. Oh, I haven't thought. You guys awakened a lot of things, which is awesome. I was reminded, OnenO, when you were talking about how sometimes you are firm in your language with God. That was something that in the church I grew up in, they did not shy away from, was how in the Psalms, David used really strong language and was very honest about being angry with his situation and almost blaming God for things that were so unfair or things that were going wrong. And that it's totally allowed to be honest.
Yeah.
And in fact, communication in any relationship it doesn't do any good if it's not honest.
Totally.
And so, yeah, expressing frustration, expressing hurt, expressing confusion.
I'm not going to interrupt you, but let's come back.
Please
I'd love to
do.
dive more into what I actually mean by that too.
I would love to.
Because it's
hear
not
that.
just
That's
expression.
just how I
Right.
what path it led me on, and I would love to hear more about that.
And I have an example of actually doing that last week.
That's great.
Let's
Yeah.
hear both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna use the word firm because that's the word to use. I'll put that in my notes. And that also comes to, I think it's in Shauna Niequist's book, Present Over Perfect. She uses the metaphor for prayer of oil and vinegar in like the little glass oil and vinegar bottles that are in like pizza parlors that are on the tables with like the red and white checkers, and how the vinegar sits at the top. And so someone told her, I don't remember who it was. It's in the book. You read it. But that prayer is like sometimes you have to pour through the vinegar and pour through the angst and the anxiety and the frustration before you get to the thick, sweet, nourishing oil underneath. And that a lot of times when you sit down to talk to God, our world has inundated us with so many things that have gotten us flustered and have started swirling up that whirlpool in our chest. And that when we can release that to God, we don't have to carry it anymore. And that's when we get to that thick, sweet oil.
Yeah.
I love that.
That oil and
cool.
vinegar. I know, because it's such a visual,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like the pizza parlor glass vials. And is it Philippians 4? Philippians is one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's really short, real conversational.
Yeah.
Quick
Talks
read.
about joy a lot. I'm like here for it. But I think it's the verse that says, don't worry about anything, pray about everything.
That's great.
And then the peace that surpasses understanding
yeah.
will be with you. And so
Yes.
it's that same exact concept.
That do not worry, pray for everything. That reminds me of this saying I heard many, many years ago. And it says, there's nothing to do. You're just being done. And so for me, when I get overwhelmed or worried or anxious and I'm taking something to God and I'm like, God, like, what am I supposed to do? And then I'm like, you know what? It's going to, I'm putting it out there. I'm going to be done. There's nothing for me to do. Like that's faith. That's like, pray about it, but don't worry about it. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Love that. So the next thing you're inspiring me to think about is how I've noticed between Neville Goddard talks about prayer, has a lot of correlation with how Greg Braden talks about prayer. So first, Greg Braden, he discusses the idea of prayer as being the merging of our thought and our emotion. And so it's when you become your prayer. The thing that, see, we think that we're praying for something. And this is where Neville Goddard comes in. Instead of praying for something, you're praying from something. So you're embodying the energy, the idea that you're praying for. The best way to pray is to get into the state as if the prayer has been answered. And that's echoed in the Bible of, I forget the exact quote because we're under pressure, you know, but the idea of believe that you have received it and it is on its way. And this is what both Neville Goddard and Greg Braden are breaking down. It's that when you get into the state as if you've been completely heard and that your prayer has been answered, that is the quote unquote correct way to pray. So it's not this begging, pleading, like, please give this to me, please, save me. It's this idea of, and it can start with gratitude. I'm grateful that what I'm here requesting or what I'm here talking about is being heard by the source of the universe, by the creator of all creation. And so when you become that thing, that implies the same idea as full belief and full faith that you have been heard and it is being answered and is coming to you. I think.
Law of attraction is all the rage right now, and The Secret, and just put things you want out in the universe and it'll come to you. But Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, especially in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, just thinking the thing isn't enough to attract it to you.
Yeah.
The appropriate emotion of abundance and gratitude and love has to be attached to it, because that's what actually magnetizes it and pulls it back in. It's the heart-mind coherence. And then
Yes.
he has all of these talks where he shows how when he helps people get into these meditative states, the charts of their brain waves and their heart waves actually following the exact same lines on the graph.
Yep.
And that's the point when their bodies start to heal themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the point when they start getting these synchronicities in their life.
Yeah, the heart-mind coherence.
The heart-mind coherence.
That's exactly, thank you for bringing that
The
up.
thought
'Cause-
and emotion combo.
Yeah, that's exactly what Greg Braden is getting into as well. And I love his perspective because he's talking about it, trying to show the Western and Eastern philosophy connections on that subject. But that's exactly what he's talking about. When you think about something, that is a form of prayer, because prayer comes from the inner dialogue. But when you just think about something, and if you don't become aware of the emotion you have paired with that thought,
Yeah,
if
because it
there's
could be anxiety
Yeah,
because you
if there's
can't pay your
fear.
bills next week. You know,
Exactly.
it's like,
Yeah. So if you have fear imbued with that thought, or lack, if you're thinking about something saying, I really wish I had this thing, or any of that stuff, if you're coming from lack or fear, whatever, that's what you're imbuing into that thought. And another thing that I love that Abraham Hicks says is that the universe is always responding yes. So if you're simply just saying, I want this thing, then the universe is responding, yes, you want that thing.
yeah.
But if you're saying, I am
Never
that
thought about
thing,
it like that.
Why
Right,
I am
yeah.
that thing. I
Yes,
already
But
you
if
have
you
do
say,
want that thing.
I am that thing, then the universe responds, yes, you are
Or
this
that
thing.
Ah,
And so that's another way
cool.
to interpret what we're talking about.
That thing is
that's-
already on its way to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Abraham Hicks is
Or instead of already on its way to me, it is here.
It is here.
It is in me. It is in my present.
It's
I
even
think
more
that's the
powerful.
cool thing about
Right.
like vision boards. I know people poo-poo on that all the time. Like, you're going to do a vision board. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do a vision board because,
I do one like every year.
yeah, and like, I'll be honest, I've been trying to get one done for 9 months now.
For 2020.
2020 has been a rough year, guys.
It's been crazy.
So I'm cutting things out still. So maybe this is for 2021. But I think it's great because not only are you looking at these images, you're creating whatever you are praying. And this is totally not about like material things at all. I mean, it can be, but if anything, it's like whatever you want to embody or become. We are constantly changing, and either for the better or for the worse, you're not going to stay stagnant. So it's like, what are you going to feed yourself with, and what direction are you going to go in? And I think those vision boards do help you, even if it's not a vision board, if it's like art in your house that makes you happy, or the
Totally.
candle, the scent, what sensory, what gets you going? It's like,
Yeah.
if it's food, whatever that is. For me, I'm very visual, and so I need that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
to see where I'm going, and from
Yep.
year to year.
I think that is a big part of the puzzle as well, is the state that you are in is actually the magnetic attraction that the universe is responding to.
Yes.
Which is why I think, back to what you were saying, Taylor, about not really knowing where to start with prayer, I encourage people, the best place to start prayer is with gratitude. Because gratitude immediately gets you into that state of alignment with spirit. Recognizing that spirit is always providing for you is the best way to get in alignment with that. And so when you're in that state of gratitude, you're by default attracting in more things to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the best place to start, is always, like you said, Kristen, KK, always talking about being grateful and thank you before you even start your day. I think that's very important.
Thank you. Yeah. So I have something, and a little shift in conversation, but I've been kind of diving into the Old Testament a little bit, just out of curiosity.
Wild child.
I know. I don't even know what I'm reading half the time. But so when I was young, when I was really heavily in my faith and my religious tradition, Protestant, Christian, evangelical, I did not believe in secular music. You could only listen to Christian music. And man, I had quite the I mean, I was listening to Avalon, Stephen Chris Chapman.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I could go on.
DC Talk.
DC
Audio
Talk.
Adrenaline News.
Super
yeah.
chick.
So all of them. Rebecca St. James, remember
yeah.
her?
I had such a crush on her.
Susan Ashton.
Jackie Velasquez.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I remember.
Okay.
I'm
so
in it.
the other day, I actually went down that rabbit hole again, and I was like, I was really kind of impressed with myself. I was like, what part of my brain remembers all these words? Because I was like, just like singing all the words, and I haven't listened to these songs in 20 years.
Totally.
And so, but I remember like driving, and I was like, wow, I feel so happy, and like the words that are being like in my car and that I'm singing and that I'm professing out loud, I'm actually speaking them out loud.
Right.
Was really beautiful language about love, and not saying like we should all go to Christian music route, because
CCM?
please don't do that.
Yeah, but it's uplifting.
It was uplifting compared to like the music that's out today. And I was like, you know, I could be in my car singing. Most of the time I listen to podcasts now, but I'm thinking about people who are 16, 17, listening to music, singing it out loud.
Cardi B. Oh my God.
Oh man.
We're not
Yeah.
going there, but I'm just showing the contrast.
Yes, thank you. But how
We sound like such nerds. We should all really be listening to Jackie Velasquez instead
my
of Cardi
God.
B.
But I love that point though of like
So hold on.
knowing
There are
what
things
you're
that raise your
putting out.
vibration and
Yes.
things that lower your vibration.
100%.
And we've got to be
100%.
careful what we are speaking
Yes.
into
We're really cool, you
existence.
guys.
Yes.
I know, we're so cool. But okay, back to the Old Testament.
Yes, bring it full
So
circle.
singing was an act of prayer. And it's mentioned 15 times in the Old Testament
Wow.
to pray, to sing as you pray.
Yeah.
So I think
That's fun.
that there's something like there is something to singing and music that is so it connects us so deeply with our spirit and with our creator. And it does make me sad where the music industry today is gone, and like how media promotes certain lyrics and certain words and certain images that are not uplifting, and they do not serve our highest self. And no one thinks about, you know, what I'm singing. I'm just singing the top 10 song, not a big deal.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
it is a big deal.
It is.
It's a really big deal.
Your mind is hearing those messages over and over again.
Yeah, like look up the lyrics to some of these music. Like it's
terrible.
Oh man,
I mean,
sorry guys.
to
we
go
are
on a
nerding
quick
out.
Oh yeah. But to touch on that quick tangent, this is exactly why. Well, it is slightly left, but this is exactly why I quit the Los Angeles Hollywood music game, is because I noticed beyond a shadow of a doubt that they will not uplift that type of music. They will, and I'm not even talking Christian music. I mean music that literally empowers you on a vibrational level. Music that puts you into the 5D. You're never going to hear from the radio.
Right.
And if you do, it's a happy accident, but it's not on purpose.
Man, I'm gonna plug a singer-songwriter right now.
I was just gonna say, like, what are some recommendations of stuff like
Yeah.
music that really raises your vibration?
This
I want to
guy-
give like a little like.
Yeah.
Oh man, I discovered him. I don't even know how, but just this year, 2020. His name's Sam Garrett, and he is like, I know he does something with Muji out in like Southern California, but
Love Muji.
his lyrics, I mean, I will just put it on as I'm like cleaning the house or like driving in the car, and I'm like, dang, like this is the type of music that should be, everyone should listen to this. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My number one favorite pump up song to get my vibration going is from Whitney Houston. It's called Joy. Joy to the World. It's from the
Preacher's Wife soundtrack.
Yes.
I
Oh my
love
God.
it.
I love that
Joy
song.
to the world.
Oh God, it's so
I
freaking
don't know
good.
if I know this song.
And I got introduced to this song when I was in like middle school because my dad was a music pastor in the church, and we would do these gigantic Christmas productions.
Huge
And so-
choir.
Oh yeah, we had a 150 voice choir
Oh,
with like
wow.
a full orchestra, and it was amazing. But yeah, so we did that song many Christmases, and I hadn't listened to it in like 10 or 15 years, and then back maybe 5 years ago from now, I put it on one day and I was like, holy shit, this song just pumps me up so much.
Yeah.
I love it because she modulates too. There's like 4 different key
Wait,
changes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
every
and-
key change.
Oh
you're
my
like,
God.
woo!
It's so good. It's
I
so
can keep
good.
up. No, I can't.
I know. It's amazing.
Raising your hands in the air.
It's so amazing though.
That new, she did it's her song, but Kygo just did a remix of it.
Who?
Kygo?
I know Kygo. You said she?
Whitney Houston. He did a remix
Oh,
of
yeah.
her
I know the one you're
song.
talking about. Yeah, it's actually, it's
And it
on
has
my
like a good
Spotify.
beat and it's great. And like I go to the gym to that song all the time. Like when it first came out, it brought tears to my eyes driving down the road.
I do love
because I
that
was like,
song.
whoa, this has a high vibe attached to it. And it's funny how your soul, your spirit actually resonates with that, the vibration coming from the music.
Higher
And-
love.
Higher love. That's it. Yeah.
Higher love.
That's
Oh,
great.
yes, Kygo. Take it home.
Yeah.
Bring me
Okay,
back.
what about you?
I love the Jason Mraz song "Have It All"
Oh, that's a
that
good
came
one.
out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Like, if I need to get pumped up in the morning, I mean, it feels like the ultimate like Enneagram 7 song because it's like "Have It All," yes. But yeah, I love that one. And actually, a friend of mine was just telling me. I just started listening to this album yesterday. It just came out, and it's by Audrey Assad, who used to be in the contemporary Christian scene. And she's like really cool. She's been going through her own whole deconstruction journey that I've been following on Instagram. Like, I'm listening to this album. It's called Eden. It's only 6 songs. Just came out.
Oh, wow.
And the second one, I'm like, did she just say we're walking each other home?
Oh.
Is she quoting Ram Dass in this song? Okay.
Nice.
And then
Yeah.
there's a Jimmy Eat World cover and there's a Coldplay cover. It's like, it's so good.
You're loving
That's
it.
great.
And then,
It's
but
great.
also, like, I can't talk about high vibe music without talking about Sleeping at Last because he's my all
man,
time,
that's
I
how
don't
you and
know
I
him.
connected.
all time favorite. Like the song Body
Oh,
is
Saturn.
my favorite. Saturn is amazing. Yeah. So
Yeah, he's
That's awesome.
great.
this is fun. I
Yeah.
love this.
Also,
Should we make a playlist?
yeah.
A
Oh,
remembering
yeah.
playlist.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
That
who
would be
wants
fun.
that? Let us know if you
Yeah.
want that.
Send us an
I
email
want
if you
it.
want your song on the
East
playlist.
Forest, he's kind of chill. He's real mellow, but he's a great one to like when I was saying earlier, like I'm really drawn to things that are just going to chill me out now because there's so much overstimulation happening all
Yeah.
the time. So when I find a good artist like that is going to just like have nature sounds with beautiful like piano playing in the background, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm game. Like, let my nervous
too.
system take a break. You get a break. Time
That's
out.
what I actually listen to all the time on Spotify is lo-fi hip hop.
Okay.
Especially because if I'm trying to do work, I cannot listen to high energy music and I can't listen to lyrics
Yeah.
because my very ADD brain will be like, "Oh, that's awesome! Now I want to make music again." I'm like, "Oh, I got to pay my water bill." Shit.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
a
lo-fi.
Spotify playlist called Coffee and Piano.
I've
That I
listened to
listen
that.
to a lot
Listen
just
to
that.
hanging
That's really
around
good.
the house.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you were saying earlier, things that we can do to touch on all of our 5 senses to raise our vibration and just get us in that loving gratitude space connects us with spirit and the conversation flows so much easier.
Yeah.
So like I love incense and candles around the house. Like for the aroma, I love tasting things that make me happy, like croissants or coffee or tea.
Yes.
Or avocado toast.
Oh,
You know,
that's amazing.
basic, so good.
I love it.
The best treat ever.
And yeah, music changes the entire vibe in the house. Sensory, like I have fluffy blankets everywhere. Like just things that raise your vibe and don't bum you out.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Have either of you been to a kirtan?
I have.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know about kirtan?
No.
So kirtan's like part of the whole yoga world, and it's so amazing. I'm not going to remember the artist that I saw in person, but I've been to a few kirtans at yoga studios in LA, and then we
How do
saw
you
this.
spell that?
KIRTAN.
Yep. It's amazing. It's basically considered the holy form of music in the yoga path, but it's very crowd participation based, you know? So when you go to one, it's usually traditional instruments. There's like a harmonium there and different classic instruments. And it's all kind of based on chanting and mantra. And so it's easy to pick up on. And so it's all about, the leader is all about guiding the audience to get into this place, into this state. And so it can become really repetitive, and that's helpful to help you get into that meditative space. And then the vibe of it, like it's mostly Sanskrit based words. So as a Western person, you're not going to know what you're saying, but that's not the point. The point is how many of us are consciously singing songs that are uplifting us, as KK was talking about. So this is a wonderful experience where not only you're doing it, but you're doing it in a community. And so you have this collective energy that's lifting each other up. And that
Corporate
specifically,
worship.
I know that's what I honestly, what I miss the most about my church going days is the community of music with the sole intent of lifting each other up. And I do think that that's wonderful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a gift.
Yeah. So the kirtan, and for those of you that are into the yoga path, that's a wonderful avenue to explore to kind of get that same vibe. And yeah.
I will say though, church worship music triggers me so hardcore, and that's like a personal thing I have to work through. But I still like if I go to like a Protestant type of church service and they're talking about, you know, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like it just
Being
focuses
bathed
on
in
like
the blood of the
yeah,
Lamb.
like the sad parts of like Jesus's his crucifixion and I'm like, man, like I really kind of believe that was all like a gift to be celebrated and like not to make like bum me out. And like I get holy reverence.
You are unworthy.
Yeah. So
But I do like what you said about how you kind of have your own worship service when you're driving in your car.
I do.
Yeah.
It's really
Singing
fun.
along.
Yeah, and like you really feel that, like
Yeah.
that. You feel moved
And
sometimes.
that reminds me of something that I forgot to mention is that the fifth chakra, the one that is the color of sky blue that's associated with the throat, is activated through, the energy of vibration, which as all chakras are. So singing is actually really wonderful at harnessing our energy in our throat area. And
Yeah.
when we have active energy in our throat area, one, we're just healthier, thyroid and things that are in that area health-wise, physically. But psychologically and emotionally, it has to do with expression.
yeah.
And so singing actually helps you better be able to express what's happening internally with words or with things that need to be released, which is kind of what prayer's about.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
And I know I'm sitting here with two musicians, like,
I'm not really a musician.
but you sing like an angel. And I've heard her sing to her son as he goes to sleep. And I was like,
the best.
wow, I can't sing. Like, I will never sing in public because it's awful. But I think that's one
I
of those.
doubt that.
Oh, man.
I doubt that.
But I do
Everybody,
think that
if you sing from the heart, it's the most beautiful expression in the world.
But it's like when I sing, it's like I don't care what I sound like. And
Yeah.
like this is like just so. I was at a church service once, and I was standing next to someone who was he was way more awful than I am singing. And he was so loud, it was making me uncomfortable, but he was so in that heart like space of like singing, and I was
beautiful.
it's like, all right, I'm kind of like am digging him right now because of how lovely his heart is, but man, his voice sucks. And it was hilarious. Anyway,
Well, to me, that's the beauty of spirit, though, is that spirit sees the intent, whereas
Right.
we are all conditioned to be Simon Cowells against each other
we're
and be like, "Oh, your voice sucks."
Well,
But-
and that's the mind judgment. Like, who's superior, who's inferior, who's
Right.
going to be
Yeah.
better at surviving, and who's worse, who should I align myself with? It's just a survival instinct. It's so crazy. We can't even help it.
Yeah, guess what? In God's eyes and Spirit's eyes, we're all Whitney Houston.
Isn't
You know
that
what I
sweet?
You know what? But that's the truth. That's the way that I see it.
I Want to Dance with
Spirit
Somebody
sees
is
heart.
my all-time number one favorite song.
oh, that's
Which
a good
one?
I Want to
wanna-
Dance with Somebody.
I actually listen to that all the time, too.
Yeah, that's
It kind of
like
pumps me up a
number
lot.
one of all-time favorite songs.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Yeah, that album is great.
So I don't want to get too far before we circle back to what you meant by firm
Yes.
language in prayer.
Thank you. So I talked about this one example in one of our previous podcasts. I think it may have even been the first or second one. Doesn't matter. It was the story that I shared about my friend's iPhone breaking.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the last.
Yeah. Was that okay? Well, 2020. There's so many things that happen. So, I want to briefly just touch on that story, and then I'd actually love to share another short story
Please do.
to really make this example clear. So the story that I shared previously was I was in a studio I was out on tour. I was with a studio mate. A touring mate. And we went to this guy's studio and he started playing a song that I was like completely not vibing with and felt just an insane negative energy wash over me. And I just said internally with a lot of authority, I said, I want out and I want out now. And as soon as I said the word now, my buddy accidentally dropped his iPhone and it cracked his screen. But then that prompted the other guy to pause the music, and that seemed like a direct answer to my prayer, and it gave me the perfect moment to walk out of that space. Mm-hmm. So that's one short story. The other story just happened recently in the middle of all of this pandemic stuff. I'm not going to share who this person was, but somebody I love was going through a very hard time. They're not doing very well financially, and then they had lost their job and they were looking for a new job. And then they got a new job, which was amazing. But then instead of the position they wanted, they got a much smaller position and they were being promised this higher position and it wasn't coming through. And so it was really frustrating and they weren't going to make enough money to pay their rent and all this stuff. So we got on the phone, we had a long conversation and we talked about the idea of prayer and the expectation of miracles. That when I say that sentence, the expectation of miracles, I don't believe it can be egocentric because I cannot perform the miracle. But I believe that the power of Spirit is so vast and sees so many pieces of the puzzle that when you request a miracle and you believe in it happening, you should expect it. If you don't expect it, you're not standing in faith, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You're not believing then that Spirit is powerful enough to deliver a miracle. So that's the subject that my friend and I were really going into. And then the prayer became to envision yourself as if your wish was already fulfilled. That's the Neville Goddard phrase that always is going over and over in my head. So the idea was to tap into what it would feel like and be like for you to have that job that you actually wanted, and then to pray from that perspective. And so the prayer, I can't remember it verbatim, but we basically prayed with authority that this prayer was being heard. We're requesting a miracle and we release our control over that miracle, but we're requesting with authority and that we know that a miracle can occur. Even in the state of 2020, even in the state of depression, if we get out of our own way and we speak with authority, we know that Spirit will answer and will listen. And so that's kind of where it came from. And then 3 days later, and I love that it was 3, this person called me back to let me know that they went into their job that day and their boss said, you know what? We are creating this new head of security position at our facility, and we think you'd be perfect to manage it. So we're making you the head of security.
Oh, wow.
And it was wonderful. They wanted a managerial position. And even though the managerial position he wanted was not available, another managerial position became available on the 3rd day.
Wow.
And it was absolutely wonderful to see that answer to prayer come back into his life. And then the story goes that they then started talking about opening up another location for their business, and they want him to be the head of security and actually design the whole security for the new business.
Wow.
So the real psychological shift that I feel he and I made in this conversation was the understanding that you can speak with authority to direct the energy of Spirit where you need it in your life. And you don't have to come from this woe is me perspective. Mm-hmm. It's not a pitiful perspective. If you are a child of God, then your voice is designed to speak with divinity and with power. So you must speak standing in that state, speak with authority and direct Spirit where you want Spirit to go.
I think it's also this mindset of like, I'm a divine co-creating creature. And why am I playing into this like idea of victimhood and woe is me? Because it is our divine birthright to have joy and peace and bliss in life. And but we, for some reason, thinks those are virtues or attributes of someone who's really put in the work. And but that should be like base level stuff. Oh, yeah. You know, like we were born as joyful little babies, and it's this conditioning and the ego, that really comes into play. And so for me, I'm on the same page with you. I don't know who said it. It's probably in some book I read recently, but it was like, expect miracles every day.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like. And so I actually kind of look for miracles, and I do expect them. And it's not because I think I'm so great and high and mighty, but no, that's just like, that's how I expect my life to work.
And you know that's the power of spirit.
Yes.
The power of spirit is that spirit can deliver miracles. And often I think it's our ego that gets in the way of those miracles. So there's another thing that Greg Braden has shown on the internet, which is a Chinese healing moment where this lady is laying on this table and she has a cancer in her stomach that's like the size of a golf ball. And there's these two healers on her, and they have their hands over her stomach, and they're chanting this one word in, I think, Mandarin, but forgive me if I'm wrong, over and over and over. And the word literally in English translates to already healed. And they're just chanting it for 3 minutes. And the most amazing thing, and I'm telling you, you can find this video online, search Greg Braden, and you'll find it. You watch on this computer screen an x-ray of the tumor in her stomach shrink and disappear in a matter of 3 minutes. And these people are just chanting, already healed, already healed, already healed. And they're like ramping up their energy. They're getting more and more excited. And you watch on the computer screen this tumor just shrink until it completely disappears. And it's one of the most amazing healing videos that's out there.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, that's I just received my 2nd degree Reiki certification.
Whoop,
and
whoop.
Reiki, as close as we can, translates to life force energy. And Dr. Usui, who kind of created this healing modality accidentally back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was on a mission to figure out what was the way that Jesus healed people. Because he was on this Christian field over in Japan, and he would teach all of the young Christian missionary kids. And they asked him, well, how is Jesus healing people? And he was, I believe he was a Buddhist monk, and he became obsessed with this idea of figuring out what it was. And so that's how he went. He came here to study Western medicine. He went to China, learned about qi. He went to India, learned about the chakras. And he kind of accidentally came back and was like, I still don't have it. And then he received this information, which is, it's Reiki, it's life force energy. It's the nature of spirit itself with intention, with hands-on, that flows through people. And because the nature of spirit is God, is perfection. It's just pure love. It's pure health. It's pure how everything is supposed to function.
It's holistic.
When it's not broken, when it's not interfered with.
The direction of the universe is harmony and healing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that. And what you're saying about gratitude, and I want to hear what you have to say
I know.
too.
No, you're good.
I was thinking about who is it? It's the book is called 1,000 Gifts. It's by Anne Voskamp, and I may have talked about it before. But she was challenged by a friend of hers to make a list of 1,000 things she was grateful for. And so in this journey of always looking for 1,000 things, rainbows on the soap bubbles, and the leaves changing colors outside the window, it changed her whole state of being. And so she wrote this book called 1,000 Gifts about how when you're always looking for the miracle and you're always looking for things to be grateful for, that's when you begin to see them even more and your eyes open up to them.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly in alignment with what I mean when I say expect miracles or have the expectation. It isn't coming from the ego, but it's keeping your mind focused on looking for it instead of coming from this state of doubt. Because self-doubt or doubt in the miracle, doubt in spirit, doubt in the healing is the killer of the miracle itself. So instead of being in the expectation of the miracle, it's setting your mind in the right state.
Are you guys familiar with the author Joseph Benner?
I think I've heard of, but not too familiar.
He's real old. He's like black and white photo of him.
Okay.
So I mean, like, I don't like 1800s, maybe not like around the 1800s, like in 1900s. So that era. Anyway, he's got a great book called The Impersonal Life. He's written a ton of books. One's called The Way Out. That one was really cool. And he's kind of like a Neville Goddard type figure. Mm-hmm. He teaches a lot about yourself and like your relationship with God. And anyway, he has this prayer, and I wrote it down. I discovered it this summer, and I wrote it down, and I was saying it every day for a little bit of time, and I forgot about it until sitting right here.
Yeah.
But I want to share that prayer with you guys. It's
Please
really
do.
short, and he says, this is from his book right before the prayer. All that is needed is to say over and over again to yourself until you believe this prayer and believe it absolutely, letting not a single doubt of its truth ever enter your mind, the following words. God loves and cares for me and is giving me all good things. I love him and think his thoughts and do only the things he wants me to do.
That's amazing.
And that's it. That's the prayer.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And that's literally, it's like, it's not, please give me the really cool house up on the hill. And I really want that guy or girl, or
Well, because
I want
those
that
things are not about
promotion.
the things.
Yeah. So
They're
this
about
is like
the feeling we think they'll give us.
God
Yes.
loves and cares for me and is giving me all good things. Like that's
Yes.
it.
Just jump
You
to that.
You just
Yep.
know God's going to take care of you.
Also, my mom would remind me over and over and over when I was young that there's this Bible verse that says, God has put the desires of your heart in your heart. We think that our desires come from us, but what if our desires, the things that we want the most, actually come from Spirit? And of course, there's this immediate question of ego. Like, holy shit, there's this dark wolf inside of us that wants negative stuff.
But what about, so I want to kind of push back on that a little bit, because like, what if the things we want would not serve us in a good way? So like, what if you wanted to watch pornography and like, then you fall into an addiction with that?
Sure.
Or, but then if you take that stance of like, well, that's in my heart, so I must just really want it.
Pornography is probably more in the body than it is in the heart.
Yeah, I would say so. But also, you
Right.
got, if you're on the spiritually.
But yes, it's hard to decipher.
But like
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
we're like, I think we all like pretty much like Care Bear like out from our heart all the time. But there's a lot of
Right.
people that are like probably living in their head a lot and trying to drop
Oh,
down into
for
their
sure.
heart, and is like, but
I do.
I'm confused about that want or that desire within me.
Because we're told,
is it good?
temptation,
Or is that,
and can we trust our desires?
So this is where the paradox hits me then, is that the Buddhists say that the source of all suffering is desire. So then the idea is to get rid of desire. But then comes the day that you realize there's no actual way to completely eradicate desire. So at least the place that my mind has gone to then is that there must be when you think about the spirit having a mission here, well, my spirit has a mission, therefore has desires. So there is a part of my desire that comes from a higher place. So then the whole axiom of know thyself, I think, becomes the most important focal point. I don't personally know, and maybe this is just where I'm at on my journey, but I don't know that I can eradicate desire 100%. It seems that no matter what I've done to eradicate desire in my life, there's still desire. And it connects to me in part of this life mission purpose.
Yeah.
You know, like I desire to make music. I can't not do
But that's
that.
beautiful.
Right.
I mean, that sounds like a gift, and that sounds beautiful, and like it's serving you.
Yes.
So for these desires that pop in and out of our brain, it's like, is that actually going to serve me if I lean into it? Or is this actually going to take me down a really bad, dark path?
So it's tricky because a lot of us grew up in a church that told us that we were born inherently sinful or wrong. The idea of original sin, which in my own life I have come to release, because if I'm made in the image of God, well, then I'm made in the image of perfection and
Right.
not brokenness.
Yep.
And that's a whole nother episode that I'm really
Yeah.
excited to do with you guys. But when you're raised with the message that you cannot trust yourself because you're inherently sinful and wrong, and that any of your desires are from the devil and they're going to lead you down the path of destruction, it's the more I spend time in meditation, connecting to spirit and listening to guidance, I become aware of the energy rising up in me that motivates me to do certain things. It inspires me to do certain things. And I realize, oh, the life force energy flowing through me is of God, and I can trust it because I am made of God. I am made of the particles of the universe, which is the fabric of God.
Yeah.
The more we spend time with God in prayer and in meditation, the more our own mind starts to shift towards the mind of God, and our heart starts to open towards the heart of God, and our habits start to look more like healthy, holistic habits. And our sensor for things that would be beneficial for us and things that would be harmful for us, it's like our radar becomes clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yeah.
Right. I think my perspective with this, though, is that I think we have to be careful saying your desires are there for a reason when you know someone might not be in a state of constant prayer and meditation. So that's what that is like almost like this permission of like, do whatever feels good. And it's like, actually, that might not serve you in the best way if you're not really fine-tuning your spiritual walk with God every single day.
Personality.
So then maybe the measuring stick of this is, okay, what if you have desires that are out of alignment or will lead you towards destruction? What if spirit, I can see some pushback with what I'm about to say, but what if spirit won't allow those things to happen? Like we say, I want $1 million, but then you don't get it. Maybe that is because spirit knows that $1 million is not actually good for you or not what you're really after.
Right. So Yogananda actually, I think it was George Harrison came to Yogananda after he read his book and said, so you're telling me if I start meditating, I'm not going to want to drink alcohol and I'm not going to want to chase women and I'm going to give up smoking cigarettes because I really love doing all of that. And Yogananda looked at him and said, as you draw near to God, you won't want to do those things anymore.
Yeah.
And so I get that. Like as you draw near to God, as you fine tune your spiritual life, the things that will not serve you will begin falling away.
They disappear.
They start disappearing. You won't desire them anymore. But I do think it's important to make that distinction of like, if you're not constantly working on cultivating that relationship with God, don't lean into every desire you have because like that scares like those lead down really bad paths sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
It for sure does. And I think especially you in the field that you're in, you deal with people with addiction and with trauma and with who are learning to decipher between their healthy habits and unhealthy habits. And that's a really important distinction because that's very real.
Yeah.
I think also it comes back to prayer is a lifestyle. Prayer is a constant dialogue. And if I have a desire, I didn't even realize that I do this, but I think now I get in this place of listening to that whirlpool in my heart. And I have this desire to do this thing. Let me check in and see if this is of me or if this is of spirit. And if I'm supposed to do it, my heart feels this epic yes. It feels expansive. It feels like anything is possible. It feels hopeful. It's almost this like little thrill of anticipation. And if I'm not supposed to do it, it feels like constricting. It feels like my heart is turning into a raisin. It feels like the walls are closing in around me. And the more time I spend in meditation, the more clear, like I was saying, the yes and no. Spirit is really good at answering yes and no questions. If we listen to our body, the wisdom is all in there. And so it's almost like this sounds fun, I'm just going to do it right away. Well, if you're living a life of constant communication with spirit, it's like there's a check-in before each action that kind of confirms it. I found a Bible verse too. I like literally opened my Bible, my teenage Bible. It has a metal case on it, and there's actually a Super Chick sticker on the back.
Wow.
So
Nice.
you know
Super
how
Chick.
old this is.
Emo of you.
And look, I was such a good Christian. Almost the entire thing is highlighted. So it's really
I'm proud
easy
of
to
you,
decipher
Taylor.
the good stuff.
She has a star next to
Gold
James.
stars. Gold
I don't even know
stars.
what that means. I like drew a pencil
Maybe you
star.
really liked it.
So this verse, it seems so fitting and also kind of touches into the things that we brought up. And I think it's the verse that you were quoting earlier. It's James 1:5. If you need wisdom, if you want to know what God wants you to do, ask him and he will gladly tell you. He will not resent your asking, but when you ask him, Be sure that you really expect him to answer, for a doubtful mind is as unsettled as a wave on the sea that is driven and tossed by the wind. And people like that should not expect to receive anything from the Lord.
That's amazing. Perfect.
What version
So
is
there
that?
you go,
Set on
guys.
doubt
Just
and
sums it up.
expectation.
Do you
Yeah.
want to Jesus juke the conversation here?
Jesus juke.
That's what we called it in Bible study. When it,
There's
like,
so the verse that my mom would always remind me of, I'm now getting a clearer memory of, has the word longing, the longing in your heart. And then the other thing that I've been thinking throughout our dialogue here is the focus on the heart instead of on the brain or instead of on the lower chakras. So the longing of your heart, like the desires in your heart that you cry about, that you just know you can't live your life if you don't do this thing.
Yeah.
Like for me, that was music.
Passion that burns within inside
Yes,
of you.
it's not a
Yeah.
flippant like I just want to go do cocaine tonight. It's not that flippant.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is the desire that keeps you up
But
at
it's a
night.
desire,
That is,
man.
yeah, but the desire.
I really want
So
to
the-
do it.
And the other piece to this puzzle that I want to bring in is when I went through Drew and Velo Melchizedek's course called The Awakening of the Illuminated Heart.
I love him. I
Melchizedek. Shout out.
do. My man Melchizedek.
So the biggest thing that they talk about is that so we are life force energy in action, and life force energy is the creative principle of the universe. So one of the things that they talk about in this course is that when you create from the brain, you create duality. Whereas when you create from the heart, you create unity.
Oh,
So
that's
the
good.
brain,
That
when you
resonates.
create from the brain, if you create something that you think is positive, you're simultaneously creating the negative and you will experience it. When you push your life force energy through your brain to manifest in the real world, you manifest both the good and the bad, and you will experience both the good and the bad.
that's the word hustle that comes to mind for me. That's
There you
all
go.
mind
Yeah.
manifestation. Yeah.
Or this is like when you force a relationship to happen and then it blows up in your face. You're experiencing the yin yang of desiring that thing from a brain level so much that you think it's amazing, and then you experience the fallout of it as well. So
yeah.
that's an example of the brain manifesting. Whereas when the heart manifests, it does not manifest in a duality sense. It manifests in a unity consciousness sense. So then you will attract your soulmate, the perfect person for you, which doesn't mean you won't have ups and downs, but it means you won't experience that traumatic cycle of this person's amazing and now we hate each other, and now they're amazing and now we hate each other. You end up calling your aligned partner in where you may experience challenge, but you don't experience it to that crazy bipolar degree.
Yeah, throwing things. And
Yeah. So that's what they were really focusing. Yeah. But that's what they were really focusing on.
This.
Yeah. But the idea of creating from the brain is where the duality comes in.
I do
whereas
want to
creating
talk
from
about
the heart-
duality and maybe another podcast because this has come up for
We're
me.
almost
Like I'm
at
just
an
waiting for
hour.
the aliens to come and
The aliens.
so I do want
another
to.
podcast.
I want to do an episode on aliens because I like them.
I'm writing all of these things.
But that idea of like the duality of like aliens, because we were kind of talking about this the other day. Like,
Yeah.
there's in this conscious community of light workers and starseeds and on and on of like the Arcturians or the Pleiadians or the Orions and Lumerians and all that, right? And they're all good and loving and light, but from a brain aspect, like in duality world, like there's got to be like the flip side of that of like, ooh, scary, like scary
The good and the
aliens
bad.
too.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
hilarious
Yeah,
that you were just like, this
another
is
one.
really important to bring up right now.
Sorry.
I love it. I do
It's
want to do an
perfect.
alien episode.
I do. I'm ready
And-
for
Let's
that
do
one.
it. Let's do
Okay.
it.
I think that
Joy,
There we
joy,
go.
joy. Whoop, whoop. We back.
Ta-da!
Yeah, I think the live stream is still going. So if you're there, sorry about all that.
Thanks for hanging in.
Yeah.
I got to start recording again. Okay. All right, we're back.
Wonderful.
All right.
Good.
Nothing happened. Nobody noticed.
No, on the other podcast, this
I
will all
kicked
be
my
edited out.
microphone.
The magic of editing.
We're fine. Everything.
Although I
good.
don't remember what you were saying,
I sure do.
then pick it up.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I think that the most ideal and appropriate way to tie up a conversation about prayer would be to talk about answered prayer, or what kind of answers we get, or how we know when we're getting an answer, or stories about answers that you have received. Like, what comes to mind?
Oh yeah, I have several stories for sure.
Oh yeah.
For sure. I mean, this is why I'm such a huge believer in prayer, is
Yeah.
because of the stories that I have.
Yeah.
I don't want to hijack it though. If there's something on your mind, KK.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've already shared a few that are answers to prayer, but I wrote one down a long time ago that I wanted to share, which was, so my dad, he had viral meningitis in this was a long time ago, 2003-ish. And it was terrible. I remember one day we woke up, it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I woke up to hearing my dad puking his lungs out, basically. And he went right into the hospital, and it was bad. They had to give him a spinal tap, and shit was getting crazy. And the doctors, well, first of all, it went a week or so, and he just wasn't getting better. He couldn't even get out of his hospital bed to pee, and it was terrible. And then on a Tuesday night, I was leading worship at church for this college group that would meet on Tuesday nights. And one of the other leaders, this guy named Steve, he and I, we were leading the group that night on the power of prayer. And so I talked to Steve afterwards, and I said, Steve, will you go pray with me over my dad in the hospital? And he said 100%. So we actually went in that moment. We left at the end of the event, and we went to the hospital, and we saw my dad. And some other pretext to this story is they said he probably won't be feeling better for the next 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to be a while. And so Steve and I went down there on Tuesday, and we prayed over him. And it was, again, a very authoritative, commanding the healing type prayer. And Steve and I just kind of went back and forth praying. It was just open dialogue. That's another thing I want to say about prayer is don't think of it as this formal thing. It's a conversation, and you should keep it conversational. God does not judge you. You judge yourself. So let go of your own self-judgment and meet God where he is in unconditional love. That's where God is. So let go of your judgment. It was a conversation between the three of us, but it was me and Steve praying for my dad. And we were just commanding in deep prayers for healing. And then we left. And we believed in it. We had faith in it. We expected miracles. And we went home. And Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, nothing. And all of a sudden on Friday, on the third day, my dad is healed. And he could come home. He could walk. He could eat. He could hold liquids and foods down. He could use the
my
bathroom.
goodness.
And the doctors were amazed. They were like, we have no idea what just happened,
Wow.
but you don't need to be here anymore if you don't want to. We're happy to hold you for a few more days, but you can leave. And he did. And he was home Friday night. And that's one of the most powerful stories that I've had in my life of the direct call and response of the meeting of the minds. That's another thing that is echoed in the Bible that I do fully believe with, is the idea that where two or more are gathered, I am there also. Yeah, I bet you did, because we're so connected, Taylor. But that's it. So
in the vortex.
yeah, but we came together, we banished doubt from our minds, and we spoke with authority and expectation that God was hearing us and that God was listening and was there with us. And then we were directing the power of Spirit. And it's so funny. As soon as I say those words, I feel my own ego get triggered. And so I want to affirm in people listening that this is not an ego-based thing that we're talking about. And if it is based in ego, it will not work. So there's no way you could accidentally trick God by using your ego. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen.
It's not how
So,
the
Wow.
energy works.
so that's my story. That's probably the most powerful story I have from my life. But I have a lifetime full of these type of stories, which is why I fully believe in spirit. I know spirit is with me day by day, thought by thought, moment by moment. And so I think it's our job to get out of our own way, which means surrendering our ego, surrendering our doubt, and fully feeling and believing and having faith that spirit is with us
Wow.
always.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh. I've always been a little obsessed from like a little girl about angels. Like I just always wanted to see one and experience one. And I don't know. I just have always really liked the idea of what angels are. And anyway, I remember being really young, like very innocent young, and like, angels, please like show yourself to me. I want to see you. And nothing would ever happen. And I remember when I started driving a car, this sounds real wild, but I would put my hand out in the like I would like tell my angels that like they could sit in the passenger seat with me.
Oh, that's
and I would
cool.
put my hand out and like pretend like they were putting their hand in my hand. I mean, like real close with like my spirit guide or my angel. I think it's an angel to be like, that's my angel. And anyway, when I was really young, I thought I had to get baptized like 1,400 times to keep myself from going to hell. And so probably I would say is like the fourth time. I think I got baptized 4 times.
Yeah, I did
legitimately.
twice actually too.
And
Yeah.
so maybe, so the very last
I
time.
don't even know how many times I asked Jesus to come into my heart.
Oh, yeah.
It was like
he's there. He's
Totally.
definitely there. He's not going
every
anywhere.
summer camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember this was the very last time I was getting baptized. And I really liked this pastor of this church. And I think I was like 11, 12, 13, maybe. No, not even that old. I was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere around that age. And I was baptized again. And no big deal. This lady comes up to my mom after the service and said, I want you to know that your daughter has an angel that hovers over her. And I saw the angel tonight. And it was like, oh my gosh, really? Like, it felt weird to hear someone say that over me. But at the same time, I was like, duh, like I know my angel, right? And so when I was about 16, 17, my parents had gotten a divorce and it was really difficult on my brother and I. And I just remember having one of those like moments by myself in deep prayer and like alone. And I just asked for comfort and for love and like just to feel like this sense of security or safeness in this time of like just complete turmoil. And I had my eyes closed and I was like kneeling and praying and I legitimately felt something embrace my body over my back. And I don't know what it was. I didn't see anything, but I felt this comfort and this peace. And I know it's because I made space and made that room and made it known that I needed that. And that was one of the biggest moments for me of like, I'm going to pray. I need this. And it just like happened for me.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. I
That's
mean, it's like
amazing.
life-changing, beautiful.
Totally.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's amazing. I've always had this general prayer of, I need guidance. Am I on the right track? Is this the right journey? Is this your will for me? When I was a teenager, whenever I would see 11:11 on the clock,
Oh yeah.
I would make a wish,
Yes.
of course. And I was a teenage girl, and I would just wish to meet my soulmate every single time.
That's so sweet.
Like, I wish for my soulmate. I wish to meet my soulmate. I want to meet my soulmate. Every single day, twice a day, or whenever I would see the clock. I didn't set a timer or anything, but when I was starting my senior year of high school, I was doing the first day of school. I took classes at the college in the town I was at. Exclusively, I didn't go to regular high school my junior and senior year. I took college classes. And I had set my schedule the spring before. It was fall. I was doing my makeup at my makeup table morning, first day of senior year. And I was tormented in my stomach, in like my solar plexus and heart with, I am not supposed to be in one of these classes that I'm signed up for. I could not stop thinking about it. I just knew I was not supposed to be in this class. And I called my guidance counselor and said, hey, I know it's the first day of
Is that your name for God? Your
my
guidance
guidance
counselor?
counselor. Well, she had an office in my portable school that I went to. So maybe.
Maybe, yeah. That's your
Guidance
angel,
counselor.
your
Oh my
guidance
gosh.
counselor. I'm just kidding.
Like, to all the guidance counselors out there, shout out. I called her and said, hey, I know we made this schedule months ago. I just have this gut feeling that I'm not supposed to be in this class and I need to drop it. And she's like, okay, well, this is really inconvenient because it's the first day of class and we have like 150 students that I'm trying to make sure everything goes well for. You want me to like grab a different class for you like right now? And so I hopped on and I was going to be starting at the university the following year studying art. And I was like, well, I know I'm going to need some art prerequisites. So here's one. Let's see if they have anything open. And she calls me back and she's like, they had a spot. I signed you up. I put you in there. It starts this afternoon.
Great.
Have fun. Don't call me again. Like
Yeah,
kind of a
please don't bother
situation. So I get there early and I'm sitting in the front of the class because I'm a nerd. And
No.
I'm kind of looking around as people come in and I see the cutest guy I've ever seen.
Hey.
In a beanie with like poofy shoulder length hair and like a band t-shirt, like halfway back on the other side of the classroom. And actually thought, would it be obvious if I left and then like came back in with all my stuff like I was just arriving and like sat over there? Like, would anyone know since we don't really know each other yet?
Yes,
Yeah.
very obvious.
It was,
Yeah.
So
Don't do that.
so I tried to like talk to this guy over the next 3 months and he would actively pick up all of his stuff and move to the other side of the room.
Oh, wow.
So I was really winning him over. And eventually one day he was wearing a really old Reliant K t-shirt.
Excellent.
And I told him, that's a really old Reliant K t-shirt. Like I remember that tour. And he was like, no way. And we started talking.
Oh, wow.
And that's Chris Nick. And it's been 15 years.
That's so
and I met him
great.
that day.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like, hey, everybody, pray to meet your soulmate. Like I hear what you're saying. Like the ego, that sounds insane.
Right.
Because I've also heard people say like, pray to have a girl if you want a girl baby. And then God, like, I don't think that God just hands things out like that. But I do think that because I was actively trying to be on the path of where things were aligning and Spirit was like moving things together in a way that was destined for future Taylor's life, I didn't have to drop and switch classes that morning. I didn't have to acknowledge that, but I did. And then Chris was in that class and it's exactly who I was supposed to be with. And then I got married at 20 years old because that's what you do when you're a youth group kid.
Yeah, totally.
Right on
But
schedule.
like that is one of the things that just comes to mind very viscerally for me because it was a very physical reaction of not that I was supposed to be in that class, but that I was not supposed to do something else. And then just by cause and effect, I ended up being in the right place
You were
to cross his
allowed
path.
Yeah, law of
Spirit to
attraction.
lead you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when I was thinking about answered prayer, when you guys were talking, another study came to mind from that Joe Dispenza book I brought up earlier, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That was a study about prayer. And I would love to tell you about it, even though it's a little trippy.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I don't like
100%.
trippy things.
So they did this study where they, I think, had 300, I don't remember the exact numbers.
Make one up.
I'm going to just make it up. It's in the book. You can reference it. It's there.
facts,
I promise.
guys.
They had these patients, or it might have been 3,000. Yeah, it was a
300,000.
300. 3 million. It was, excuse me. Oh my
You're
gosh.
good. You're good.
The allergies are out of control. It was it was several thousand patients that had this disease that were all in the hospital, and the disease was that they got it from having previous like hospital procedures. It was like a secondary thing that they just got from being exposed to it in the hospital, which is more unusual. So all of these patients had exposure to these germs from just being in the hospital. So all of these patients had someone assigned to them they had like half of them were the what they call like the stable group or the observation
Control group?
Control group.
Yeah.
So they were not prayed for. And then half of the patients they prayed for so many times a day for this length of time. And they wanted to see which patients got better and which ones didn't.
Wow.
Based on who was being prayed for.
Yeah.
And so of the people who were terminal and were about to die, nothing changed that much. But of the people who recovered, the people who were prayed for recovered significantly faster
Oh, wow.
than the ones who were not prayed for. This is where it gets weird.
Cool.
Because
Bring it
all
on.
of these patients were in the same hospital. But that's a lot of patients to all have this one unusual disease and be in the hospital at the same time. They were all actually patient records that had been taken over the previous 20 years. They were not all presently in the hospital. They gathered 3,000 patient records over the 20 years earlier of all the patients that had this particular disease
Yeah.
and said, we're going to pray over, like, here's your patient file, pray over it.
So they prayed over the person not even in front of them.
They were not in front of them,
Was seeing
and
the
it
paper.
wasn't even in the current timeline.
Wow.
These people had been in the hospital 15 years earlier.
Wow. Yeah.
So prayer,
Talk about quantum.
talk about quantum, that God,
That gave me like the goosebumps.
yes,
Wow.
because time and space are the rules of the third dimension, are the rules of living on planet Earth. Time and space do not apply to God. God is in every time period. He sees us as our child self and our elderly self all simultaneously because our soul is the same.
Yeah.
So this study showed that prayer was able to retroactively heal people.
Incredible.
Like, yeah.
That's incredible.
That's a, like,
Totally.
a good story. Like,
Yeah, great story.
Because I remember reading about that in that book, in Joe Dispenza's book. But man, that really like, I really got it this time. Like reading it, I think I breezed over that.
So,
Totally.
and the power of prayer, I think he doesn't call this book the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's not like a book about prayer, but all of the studies for how to rewire your brain and affect your life, to me, that's all prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And he has the actual scientific studies that show the ways that it affects our mind and it affects our heart and all of these things, which is really cool. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend that book.
I think
Yes.
that's becoming more commonplace too, is like this idea of like quantum. Yeah, like everybody throws that word around, but like the idea of like time is not linear, but we think it is. You know, we because we have these time stamps that we have been conditioned to think like we have to be here at a certain age and you grow old and then you die and that's it. And it's like, that is not true. And I kind of loved and was so confused. I did go see The Tenant this weekend, that movie that's
yeah,
out.
I wanna
and it's
see
at
that.
Palindrome.
I want to see that. Yeah.
So like the word tenant's actually
Yeah.
okay. So
Palindrome.
the whole movie works like that too.
That's cool.
Right, mind blown.
Don't spoil it though,
I'm
because I'm
sorry.
super stoked.
Yeah. So anyway, I love though. I mean, I was confused, and I went into it kind of like I'm gonna figure this out. I'm smart. I'm gonna get this.
Yeah.
And like I knew it was confusing walking in, but like I felt so defeated when I left because I was like, it got me. I
like,
did
damn it,
not figure
Christopher
that one
Nolan.
out.
You did it again.
But I love that it's about time not
Yeah.
being linear.
Yeah, going in two directions.
All just the now
so
moment.
cool.
Everything is just right now.
Yeah,
Right.
and time is really just a measurement. Time is not an empirical thing.
It's just a way of
Doesn't actually
documenting
exist.
different now moments
Yeah.
in the order that we think that they have happened.
Yes.
But if we think about the past, it's all just memory. And if we think about the future, it's all just anticipated. And
Yeah.
both of those are imaginary.
Yeah, the only thing
we
that
can't hold
exists.
either of those in our hands.
Right. The only
that.
place that things exist is in the now.
So that's
I
not
read
that's a whole nother
somewhere that like
episode.
memories are just
Illusions.
they're just we have memories to teach us not to do things over again.
Right.
Like
yeah.
that's it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So like when we like go into like nostalgia, kind of like we start being sad boys and girls over certain things. It's like, no, don't do that. Like bring it back to now. And just remember, like, whatever got you in that situation that made you sad, don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like, There you go.
I wanted to talk about your story of meeting Chris because
Sure.
that's a perfect example of another thing I wanted to say on how to know when Spirit is answering your prayer is through synchronicity.
Oh, yeah.
I write in my book, which again, I'm sorry, it's not released yet, but I do plan on releasing it soon, so stay tuned. But I write that we should let go of the expectation that Spirit will use words to communicate with us, because words are not what Spirit needs in order to give us what we need or to communicate with us in a way that we need. So synchronicity, I think, is one of the perfect ways to see the evidence that Spirit has heard and has listened and has answered. So it's kind of it's this beautiful paradox, which is another term I bring up over and over in my ebook, beautiful paradox, that you must simultaneously have expectation that Spirit has heard you and is answering and it's coming to you, and also release expectation of what that might look like and what that might be, and have trust and faith that that's all going to happen perfectly, and release the control of that. And then the only last thing I would say is surrender, and the idea of let go of your worries, that your worries really serve no great purpose in your life. And when you hand your worries over to God, there's a Bible verse that I can't remember verbatim about handing your worries over to Spirit. That is, you can rest at night knowing that the things you're worried about then will be provided for, will be taken care of, because it's not on you to figure out the universe. Like, that's what your ego tries to do. But hand over your worries to Spirit and let Spirit handle how you're going to be taken care of. And another beautiful symbolism, mythological story there is that when Moses was directed by Spirit to release the slaves from Egypt, they wandered in the desert, and yet they were provided for every single day with the manna from heaven. And I believe that story is purely symbolic. But the symbol there is that you will be given what you need to survive each day in the now moment that you need that thing to survive. So it's not, we like to think about time. So we think, oh, I need $1 million in order to be able to survive. But what if somebody gave you $100 every day?
Right.
You wouldn't need $1 million in your bank account. You just need what you need in your now moment to be able to get your food or get your gas or whatever it is. So it's, again, letting go of the ego expectation while simultaneously holding the expectation that Spirit is listening and answering.
Well, and the mind wants to know how.
Yeah.
But the heart is just accepting that it's going to happen. And there's infinite possibilities of how.
Yeah.
We don't have to determine how. And when we say it has to happen in this particular way, then we're taking all of that 99.999% of options off the table. We're limiting how Spirit could actually answer the prayer.
And also, I will just give us a time heads up. We're at almost an hour and a
I'm going
half.
to ask
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anyone is inspired to lead us in a 5-minute exercise, prayer exercise. Or
I mean, I'm always willing, but I also don't want to be like
my
the
ears
guy.
perked up at the prayer of St. Francis.
Okay.
You want to just do that again? And
Yeah,
maybe we'll...
Like in its entirety. I think that
Yep.
would be cool to just read
Yeah.
through because it's beautiful.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, so we'll end on a nice little reverent quote. And
Pulling it up.
for those of you out there, you can, whatever space you're in, but if you're driving or anything, don't close your eyes. But I think this may actually be a wonderful
Still listen.
thing. Yeah, you can just tune into the energy that KK is about to
See
share.
how it affects your heart. And
Yeah.
what that feels like.
Yeah, feel it out.
Yeah.
While you're looking that up, that does remind me that Neville Goddard has a book that's called The Feeling is the Secret. And that is one of the most amazing books that you could get of
Hold on,
his.
what's it called?
The Feeling is the Secret.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it's specifically talking about how it's the feeling that we're really after to generate that emotion. And oftentimes, I'm only talking because I feel like you're still looking up your quote, but
I'm good. I found
oh, you
it.
found it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But
Sorry, hold on.
getting into a state of peace, I think, is another way that you can know if you're in alignment with your prayer and with that being heard and coming into you. Because if you're in a state of anxiety, you're going to manifest more of that.
Yep. Yep.
So manifesting the feeling will then attract in that thing. So
Prayer, daily, consistent prayer takes away that worry and that anxiety and those hopeless feelings that do come up sometimes. So, all right, we're going to pray.
yeah,
I'm
do
ready.
it.
So I'm going to just say this prayer. By the way, Sarah McLachlan wrote a song I just found out called The Prayer of
Based
St.
on this?
Francis.
Oh, I bet it's
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
I think it is.
I haven't heard it. I
was
just
looking up the
imagine.
lyrics.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she
Put
is.
it over some pictures of sad puppies.
I know.
People will adopt
She's
them
saved so many.
all. Okay, sorry. Go on.
Serious now. All right. So if you want to close your eyes, maybe drop down into your heart and feel that space of just relaxation and just feeling where you are and feeling your breath come in and out of your body. And I just want to say these words, and as I speak these words, make them your own. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injustice, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amazing. It does it all. It says it all.
It's beautiful.
That's great. Well, there's so much more to say, but we're going to have to save it for next time.
All right, bye, people.
Peace. Bye.
What should everyone do if they want more info?
Yeah. We got our email, which if you're watching the video podcast has been scrolling on the bottom. It's the Remembering Podcast at gmail.com. And we got an Instagram, which is the Remembering Podcast, and a Twitter, which is Remembering 1111.
Have we posted on Twitter yet?
We should probably
Not
sync
really,
that up.
but maybe we'll do that
us
sometime
there.
soon. You
We'd
know,
love to see you
technology is a
there.
lot. Yeah. If anybody wants to intern for a podcast, feel free to email us.
Please.
And if you have any questions about stuff that we brought up today or that you've been pondering about and you don't really know who to ask, we would love to talk about it. So you can send those to the email as well, the Remembering Podcast at Gmail.
And I'm really feeling this like high vibe playlist.
I like this.
Yeah, we should do that.
Let us know if that's something you want to do.
Or if you have songs that that need to be on it.
Yeah, because we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Contribute it, yeah.
And we'll
Definitely.
make it on Spotify so we can share it with
When it's
everyone.
available,
That'd
we'll
be fun.
definitely post about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll create it over time.
Great.
That'd be
Oh my
good.
goodness, I'm so excited.
It will be a living playlist.
yeah.
Love
It'll
it.
be-
Yes.
It'll
Yeah,
grow
organic.
and morph, and we'll probably have a lot of different genres. So
Yeah.
if you put it on shuffle, it's going to be crazy.
Perfect.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming along the journey again. And until we see you next time, have a beautiful day.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.